well, good evening. I would like to call to order the Tuesday, February 18, 2020 work session of the Town of Haymarket Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Shannon?
Here.
Crowley?
Here.
Carter Bush?
Here.
And Corral? And Mr. Pyle?
Here. All right. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not on the agenda, but let's go ahead and pledge a moment of silence to settle our minds, and then we'll roll it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence. All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right. So do you want to go ahead and look at the CIP first and just knock it out?
Yes, so if you guys recall, and Ms. Pearl, this will be new for you, but about a year ago, we were discussing the CIP. So we do still have on here this upcoming year. This will be modified to reflect the new upcoming fiscal year 2020-2021. So things will be shifted a little bit, but I just wanted to discuss the general government section here. Are these items still items that the Planning Commission wishes to work on and fund in the coming years? And if so, let me know. If there's changes, also please let me know, as we would like to do some modifications and then take it back to you guys at your next regular meeting, and then ultimately get it to council for their approval during the budget season.
And also, one of the reasons why we brought this one in particular is Councilman Leak requested that we bring this back to you all just to verify that for this year that this is still a good CIP plan. You all don't see any substantial changes that are required. This was passed in March of 2019, so this should be brought up to council next meeting in March upon request of Councilman Leak. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were still in line with the CIP plan.
Do we know, is there anything like infrastructure that exclusively that the town owns, like water, sewer, I think we asked last time, power, all that's relied on by utility companies all within our property? Do we have any advocacy of when certain systems are getting close to the end of their life, or do we have are we plugged in with those guys? Because I know there was a big water main break before I got here, and how can we better advocate for infrastructure improvements?
So we can look into the long-term care and maintenance of them, but our water main is actually relatively newer. I'll have to look at the exact date of when they brought it out here, but it's certainly not as old as ones you would find, you know, further into the county in Manassas, that area. So that's a bit newer. Same with sewer. Power lines, they're coming in and updating them. They did raise them, so that's also a bit newer. And when I say new, I don't mean 5 years. It could go back 20, 30, 50, but it's not 100, you know, plus years on some of these infrastructure things. So we can look into it, but for the most part, when it comes to the electrical lines, you know, Dominion's coming in and doing Prince William County Service Authority, though, I can reach out to.
Okay, I mean, I'm more thinking towards capacity as this town's continuing to grow, and we are planning currently for expansion, or not expansion, but growth.
Right.
That we're just in a line that we are in contact with them and they understand.
Yeah, so when people develop and site plans and things like that, it has to go to third-party agencies and Service Authority is one of those, especially if they need to hook up to the water and everything. So they have a pretty good pulse of development and stuff. So it's kind of their responsibility to make sure that people that want to develop and have water, they're readily able to connect them to water. So that's one of those things where, you know, they look out for it. I mean, if we're having service issues or residents are and they want to reach out to us to see if it's a, you know, a large issue that we can try and assist with, we're more than happy to do that. But, yeah, they've got a pretty good, they review the majority of the plans and development that are coming out this way.
Right. I mean, I know we're a smaller town, so I guess we don't warrant a Department of Public Works. We must be below that threshold. Are we going to get close to that threshold, you know, where we have to own our own infrastructure
We're still about
Thir-
1,500 people shy of it.
Yeah,
of it? Okay.
so 3,500 is the magic number, essentially. Once you do that, then you start taking over roads and,
Okay.
yeah, that's one of the things when we're talking about planning, the comprehensive plan with density and things like that, you know,
Yeah, we want to consider.
you want to consider, because then you start incurring significant costs to the town in, you know, those infrastructure costs and things like that.
Because that's what I'm just used to seeing a capital improvement plan. Usually you see infrastructure on there. I noticed we didn't really
So
see those
if you
specific
look,
things.
so what our infrastructure would be is the sidewalk extension. So right now, we've got from over here by Details down to where Cupcake Heaven is now. That should be completed hopefully before July 1. That's the plan. And then we'll also have some sidewalks we've discussed, you know, in front of the park here, the new playground and park. Then we've looked at Fayette, that we've had some requests for actually both sides of Fayette over here to connect from Sherwood Forest, and then what's the other ones?
The 18th century all the way up to Washington Street, there's two old parcels that don't have sidewalk improvements on them. So just there's been some requests of, is there a possibility to have it come all the way up?
So those type infrastructure projects is things that the town would take on and complete. But, yeah.
Do we have,
Stuff like that, but we're not there yet.
Do we have quotes for some of those? Or are we going to plan on getting quotes to be able to narrow in on a price tag?
So that is where we need to review, so you can see here Haymarket Park sidewalk to Blight Drive for the 2021. So that's, you know, as long as that's still a priority and we move forward with that in the new CIP plan, that's going to end up being the upcoming year. So if that still moves forward with you all and council moves forward with the new CIP plan, then potentially we'd start looking at quotes and things like that, so we could hopefully get started soon
Do
after.
we know where the 250 came from? Because that really seems very high, the 250,000.
So we ballparked that estimate, but also we took into consideration that the Jefferson Street project right here is just under 500 feet,
Mhm.
500,000.
Okay.
And so we went from that, because we would have to do engineering on it.
Mhm.
When we do that engineering, it does trigger some stormwater stuff, just based on what was previously designed for that park.
Okay.
In the original master plan, so it was a very ballpark number, but we kind of took some of the factors into play of what previously been done, what we are working on. Some of the groundwork is already complete.
You have to look at utilities too. If there's utility relocation, it's not going to happen. That's extremely expensive.
It's hard to say, but I actually think with, when you go past it next time, if you look, Haymarket Baptist has theirs that ends, and then we have a pretty good, gravel shoulder there.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I think will accommodate most of it.
It should. It should. You just have to have Miss Utilities out here to mark that because you don't know what is under there. So, but
But, yeah, the only project we've got going right now is the Jefferson Street
Mhm.
details here. And then once that one is complete, then that's when we'll start looking at the other sidewalk there. We've got Fayette, the two different sections of sidewalk. We've got the turn lane out here next to Town Hall. So, I mean, we've got quite a bit of infrastructure projects that could happen.
Mhm.
But, you know, like the turn lane, I think if we can get Prince William County Transportation and some representatives from this area to help us out, because it's a regional issue that it should be able to help with. So that's my goal.
Okay.
All right, good question. Somebody else?
Since I'm new at this, how did you come up with this list, and who evaluated each of these line items?
So last year, what we did, we've not had a CIP in a little bit. And so what I did last year is I worked with our previous business manager, Jerry, and we kind of came up with a list based on projects that had been discussed at the planning commission level, town council level, the architectural review board, and we kind of developed what was a priority, and that's what we tried to start funding for what is 2019-2020. And then we pushed out based on priority levels or on things that we knew may take a little bit more time to engineer, plan, construct, and so we spaced it out that way. For an example, we would love to have a municipal parking lot. However, we don't have this listed as funded because it's something that, you know, you have to acquire land, and then there was a lot more to it. However, the ARB's been working on town signage ideas for a very long time, and it's something that we really wanted to see done. And so we tried to scope out, and I called a couple people to get these numbers. So these are a bit more finite, if you will. So we talked about if we can even pay $15,000 to design it this year, then they gave me the prices on what it would cost to actually buy, and then we afforded ourselves enough money to buy two, and then two the following year. So we tried to look at those things. Chief did come up with his police department items here, and then the museum, we had one holdover item that they had wanted a surveillance system, and so we put that back in here. But for the most part, they were priorities that we had heard through our meetings.
Okay, thank you.
This is the capital improvement. I think last year we also had the conversation about, is the police department or any type of equipment items, should it be on this list or on the other part on the budget?
We did have it.
Yeah. Do we ever have a resolution? I mean, obviously valid requirements, just should it sit in the capital improvement?
So with the capital improvement plan, that is more of like a one-time fee, or once every 5 years, once every 10 years type project. So sometimes, especially for a small town like us, we don't have, you know, if you were to calculate all this up and, you know, looking at millions, that's not going to be feasible for us to do in 1 year, like the Fairfax and stuff like that. So what we have to do is we identify projects that are the priority, and if it's going to take 2 years or 3 years, it's still on the capital project because it's one project. It's just, we have to expand it a little bit. So just think of, normally things that will be on this are one project that you're not gonna have to worry about, like the crosswalk repair, you know, stamped concrete. You're gonna get 10, 15 years out of that. You're not gonna need to do it every single year. Or, you know, same thing with the sidewalk, or, you know, some of the security systems. That's not things that you're gonna pay every single month or every single year. You're gonna spend, you know, $1,000 on it. That stuff goes general fund, and that's the regular budget. So that's just a little bit of the breakdown. So the equipment and stuff you use on a regular basis, that'll be general fund items.
So like a police cruiser?
So it depends on how you break it down, but we buy, just because this is one police cruiser, and then another one, and then another one, versus buying 5 in one time. So there's some towns, that's what they do. They say, okay, we're going to lump all these together and spend $250,000 1 year, and we're not going to worry about it for another 5, and then in 5 years, and we're going to spend another $250,000, $260,000 and buy 5 more cruisers. So, because the way the budget is, to renew the fleet, this is how you have to operate it. So that's...
I guess because I'm looking at it from just from the definition I'm used to in the government, capital is like how you describe. So those are more equipment, and that would go into general fund, like what I see under the police line items. And we, as what we control for planning and build out, mostly construction costs type stuff, would be in the capital improvement, and the police department's or equipment items would go under the general fund. Now, I mean, I'm not going to fall on my sword for this one. I'm just saying that I think it's a little confusing, because generally it's that deviation is a separation, because we won't control the police budget, right, from the planning committee. And our recommendation is more construction costs and planning.
Yes and no, but it's planning as well as you're helping plan the future for the town. So the police cruiser, like you said, it may be more advantageous for the town to lease the vehicles and pay that, monthly fee and just continue to run it forward instead of owning the assets and things like that. So it just depends on how the town wants to operate it. So,
Okay. I guess, is there anything in the general fund you think that we should be considering then? Because I didn't see the budget. I think maybe we saw it once, but
yeah, no.
we're more concerned in the planning committee about the
Yeah.
construction stuff. But
Yeah, so this is more in line with the comprehensive plan, like the 5-year plan moving forward. That's where normally the CIP comes to the planning commission. And then
Okay.
the general fund is like finance committee and town council.
I would just recommend that we take out the police department or anything that's not dealing with the things under our purview, I think. My recommendation. Not that it's not a valid requirement, just something that we don't recommend to the town council, something that's outside of our control.
Mr. Shannon, you have any comments?
No. Good.
The only comments I have, under the Haymarket Community Park, under construction, that's 6.235 mil. Is that for the pavilion and the, mine just went totally blank.
So
Community
this
center?
was,
There's no community center. We
to,
had all the charrettes 3 or 4 years ago, and we came up with the master plan. We had like amphitheater, we had the
Yes.
pavilion. So is that what those costs are?
that is correct, yes. So what we were hoping to do, and this will probably bump all 1 year, we were hoping to pay for engineering costs to get actual site plans drawn up of the master plan that you guys have previously approved. And then we were hoping to go into construction and build out. Being a year after the fact, I cannot tell you exactly why we decided to carry $2 million for 3 consecutive fiscal years. I will work with Chris on that. We might alter that.
Yeah, it seems a little high for what we were wanting to do, because
Yes.
originally we had the playground, there was some landscaping, there was a walkable trail, there was an
Paved
amphitheater.
parking lot.
Yeah, things of that nature. And the existing home was going to be a community center on some level. But
Yes.
if we could just get some clarity on that, because I've actually had several residents ask me, hey, since we've got the playground up and running, when are we going to start the next projects? Because that was a pretty detailed, we had a lot of public input on those.
We did. And I know some of the costs would be the stormwater
Right, I know
costs,
it can
but
get
it
expensive.
certainly is not, hopefully, $6 million worth of improvements. So I'll talk with Chris. We'll kind of work on those numbers to better ballpark it, but that was the intent of, we would get engineering done, and then we would go out beyond that for construction.
Yeah, because if you look at the bottom totals down there from, from 2021 on through 2024, if you back out those $2 million line items, you're talking, less than $700K, which is pretty significant. I just think with that much money, if we could, I want to keep that project going, but do we really need that much money? Of course, this is, again, just because it's here doesn't mean you're going to spend it.
What did we, on the gazebo up there, what, or the
Yeah,
pavilion?
That was the other one.
What was it, weren't we trying to get the electric or somebody to help out there? Yeah, for the pavilion, we were talking about getting,
Isn't that Dominion Power with this
Yeah.
whole
Yes.
234, 30 kilovolt?
Yeah.
Didn't happen, to be honest, it didn't happen. We were in talks about kind of a sponsorship, some kind of working together, and we just didn't get anywhere. On their end, so what we can do though is kind of gauge interest to still put it up. We can work through other community partners, but the other thing is we can also ask for it in our budget. I'll have to get with Chris to see what our budget we have for this upcoming year. But there are a lot of different options out there that we can definitely get quotes on and see about doing a project. The only thing with that is if we lay the concrete, we will have to look into doing a bit more of kind of a site plan, just for draining off, drainage and, stormwater runoff, things like that.
Well, and we need to, because if we're going to do it, we need to do it right, and not do it, part way. But, okay, well, that answered that. I was afraid that was going to be too good to be true, because they got the money, but, if they don't want to help out, we can't force them to help out.
Well, even thinking about the city of Manassas, they use their pavilion as a skate rink in the winter. In the summer, they do outdoor concerts to make a multi-purpose. Maybe even look into what that cost. Of course, I know it's been done 3 or 4 years ago. However, you could do projected, what it costs then to net today in real dollars. That may be another thing. It probably wouldn't be a bad idea, because that's very well used there.
It is, and I think because Julie performs there, her choir, they perform there every year. And just something to check, I think the county threw in on that, as well as the city of Manassas, and I think they got some, what do you call it, grants too, or whatever. You may just want to check on that and see. Obviously, any type of help we could get for this would certainly be beneficial for us, and maybe even speed the plan up, depending on what it is we can get.
Yeah, because besides Long Park, that's really the only park out here.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
All right. I think other than that, we're pretty good. All right, so the next thing we were wanting to do was comp plan, because we all had homework, correct? Is that where you want to go next?
That is correct.
Let me just speak on one item. I know that I let Councilmember Shannon know this, but I reached out to a friend of mine that works on developing apps in Richmond that we had discussed as a priority, and it would ballpark between $75,000 and $100,000, with about $10,000 of regularly occurring maintenance, depending on how much information was edited, either monthly, quarterly, or annually. So that is a quite substantial investment for that app. But I just wanted, because we discussed it last time, I want to be able to
And
report
how
back.
much did you say it was?
Between $75,000 and $100,000.
All right, let's just use 100,000. How many businesses do we have in town?
140, probably.
So if you took 140 businesses and you divided, perfect world, it would never happen, but you're talking about $800 a year per business for an app. But really, if you break it down per business, it's really not that expensive,
It's annual maintenance too,
right?
about $10,000 per year, which is not uncommon. That may be cheap for apps, depending, so.
I still think it's worth getting a couple quotes. It doesn't mean we have to do it, but I still think it's worth pursuing.
So you want additional quotes
If you
for?
don't mind, if you get the opportunity, I just, every, apps are big, and apps can, obviously they cost money, they can also help you make money.
So I do have one question. You're talking about 140 businesses if they paid $800 a piece, but this, we wouldn't require them to pay.
Well,
We wouldn't
no.
be able to.
But we had discussed before, would they be willing to help because they could advertise on this, right?
We could provide their information, yes, but if it's not a requirement, it'd be hard to count on that funding.
No, I understand
to move
that, but
forward.
if I'm a business, I give you an example, like, I won't name the periodical or the entity, but for like a 3x5 ad in a local newspaper that comes out monthly, it's like $400 in print for one little ad. So if a business ran, an ad of that size for 12 months, you're talking about $3,400. And there's businesses month after month running ads in that. So really, if you look at print versus social media, it's really not that expensive.
Could we put out a questionnaire, or
Yeah, it's
have we gone back to the meetings? I know, Emily, I had attended some before.
not having an app.
Have we gone to back to the meetings with the local businesses and stuff like that?
Businesses.
We have not yet.
Because right now we don't have an app. So everybody in town can download an app, and then you have
Yeah.
a
We
menu
have not.
upcoming.
I think we ought to get back on that, and this is why. This is one of the things we could discuss. I mean, we could just bring up to them, hey, we're looking at this, you pay them to advertise on it, or they would pay us to advertise on it. Just kind of get a feeling for them. But if we go back to those, whether it's monthly, quarterly, whatever, I know that the ones I attended before, several years ago, were pretty informative and everything, made some good contacts and stuff like that. So just something to think about there. I think if we have that, we just pose the question to the businesses. Not all the business show up.
Right.
In fact, we had a lot of business from out of town that showed up and everything, which was real cool. But I just think we have,
It's nice that different businesses would host it, and
Yeah.
they kind of took ownership and wanted to really be a part of the town
Yeah.
meetings and stuff. So.
we just have to make sure when we do that, if somebody does host it, that the business is big enough. As you know, we've had a couple of them where we didn't have, it's ideal to have various businesses host it, but, we can host it here and get everybody in with no problem. But some of the other places, as you know, we were in a couple different rooms. So, but just an idea there. So.
Okay. So what I'm doing right now is I am writing on our whiteboard what we talked about at our last meeting, for those of you who weren't here. So we talked about our main concerns, and what we came up, the commission and staff came up with together is that we're always hearing from our citizens about traffic concerns, schools being overcrowded, it being a development doesn't fit within our town, and then is it historic? So those were the top 4 concerns that we've heard and came up with together. So then we started discussing our priorities, and again, this is just to start laying the groundwork for where we need to do surveys, where we need to do research analysis, different kind of data that we can collect to better help us with our priorities. So the 2 that we've already nailed down are traffic and informing our citizens through better tactics, thus the conversation of the app. So I'm going to write those down, but I wanted us to go ahead and come up with our remaining 3 tonight. Hopefully, maybe we can get this done in about a half hour, come up with our remaining 3, and then spend a couple minutes talking about the homework assignment that we had this past time, which was to look at the different jurisdictions. So that sounds good. So while I write those 2, I'll let you guys start about your next priority. Are you guys able to still see it if I? Yeah, I think, just want you guys to feel included.
Could actually angle their chairs, because if you do that, then these car bushes, and you'll be able to see. Would you mind just angling it a tad towards us, because the folks over on this side probably can't really see it. Thanks.
It's fine. I can see.
So some of the other priorities that we previously discussed, and these were things that came out of multiple meetings and multiple groups, was for, is it historic that concerned? We were discussing making it a priority to update the list of historic resources, working with the ARB to really flesh out what is a contributing resource and what areas, and then how we want to very clearly define in our comp plan historic Haymarket, the parts of our town that are historic, and thus create the feel and nature of our district. So that was one thing. Schools overcrowding, we had talked about that some. That kind of came down to, you know, we need to talk with the county. We need to have a better relationship there with the school board. If that's a concern we're continuing to hear, we need to take it to them. We can still go through different research tactics to figure out, you know, what our current population is, what we can accommodate. If schools overcrowding is still a concern, then working on a planned land use map that further restricts residential development within our open parcels. So that was another item. What were some of your guys' other priorities?
Well, I got to tell you, what Nick had sent, and with stay up front, I took off up here and grabbed my homework and the comp plan, the Owen, but not my comments from that I brought last time. But one of the, as far as top priorities for, you're talking about for the town itself, for our CIP, I got to tell you what Nick had sent in: connect town east and west, north and south of the county through safe sidewalks, trails development funding to promote walking, running, and biking. I think that's an important priority. We,
So maybe we name it like connectivity, and then we
Mhm.
can further elaborate within that on goals and objectives of connecting all of town, east, west, north, south, but also connecting then to the county, getting connection over to, say, Gainesville, getting connection over to Heathcote, getting connection out to James Long, kind of some of those other nodes that are in the local area.
Yeah, like intra, and inter
yeah.
connectivity.
Okay.
Because right now it's piecemeal at best.
Yes.
Someplace non-existent.
Is everybody on board with calling it connectivity, and then I will elaborate more on that?
That's a
Fine.
good
Mhm.
buzzword.
Inter, yeah. Mhm.
Can we go back to that, is it historic? We've talked about this in the past, and it may be in writing, I can't recall. Do we have an actual list of buildings that are on the National Registry, as opposed to just what we consider historic?
So we do have a list of the national ones, and I do believe that it is very, very limited. But what we do have in the comp plan as well, that I do want to draw your attention to, is we have a whole historic section that reads that just because it's not national or regional, that our local history is still very important, and thus they outlined the list that's in our comp plan as we speak. So that could be updated a little bit to maybe add a couple more structures to it. We can change the link
Yeah, I'm looking at it here. The definition of, just the plan as a whole there, I don't know if you know in particular where it's at there, but the house right around the corner on Fayette, it's over 50 years old. That doesn't make it historic, though. It's got no, I mean, what
Definition.
what is the deciding factor whether a structure over 50 years old is historic or not?
So if you guys are following along, just, and for anybody listening, it's page 44 in the comp plan, or it is section 1.5, historic resources. So there is some literature in here about it, some definitions, and then defining our historic zoning. So we are, as everyone knows, we are a historic district. The entire town is an overlay. There's further defining of how a structure is historic, but that is something that I would recommend is that we request a joint work session with the Architectural Review Board to work on those definitions, helping you guys understand them, but also helping the board understand what you guys have to look at when, developments or that nature site plan wise. So, really start to tackle this section, I would recommend a joint work session.
Well, if I could just make a recommendation, Mr. Chairman, we have in here the chairman of the ARB, and there's some smart folks out there too, is that maybe we identify ahead of time what we feel should be or are the ingredients to make a building historic. Because, I mean, if that makes sense.
No, I agree.
Because it's not, I have it in here, that's why I had the comment update, because it's got some good stuff. But I've had this discussion just recently with a couple of folks. Again, I use the house right around the corner now that I thought they were going to knock down, they're redoing, which is nice, I'm glad. But that home's 60 years old or something like that. To me, it's not historic. It has, there's been two families living that home, one family living that home the entire time. And she's deceased, and the daughter just sold the property, so they're redoing it, but one family in there. And I would think for it to be historic, it would have to have some type of significance or something to the town or something like that. But again, I think with the ARB and us, I agree with maybe a joint session, but I think we ought to, ahead of time, just kind of put our feelings on paper in an email to each other, to include the ARB, or send them to you and you send them out, on what we feel determines whether it is a historic building or not.
No, I totally agree. I think a joint, and to me, the sooner the better we could have a joint.
So maybe, if the planning commission is up for it, what you guys could do as part of your homework assignment for this month is jot down what items you guys think make buildings or places or landscapes in town historic, and reasons for protection. And then, since Chairman Lorson is here, I'll go ahead and mention this. I will ask that at the ARB meeting tomorrow night, they have a similar homework assignment that they could work on, and then we can propose a date tonight for March that we can do a work session. I'll ask them tomorrow night if they can make that date work or propose a change in date, but we'll coordinate and go ahead and have one in March for a joint work session to keep us moving.
Right, because of the four concerns up there, that always comes up. And a lot of times, a project is well in the planning stages for an applicant, and they've already spent engineering and a lot of money, and then they come to us, and, there's been many times we want to knock down a building, and then we debate, well, is it historic? So if we could provide something for applicants that say, here are the parcels that contain historic buildings. I just think a lot of times we allow people to get really far down the road, and then we put a stop to it, where they've spent a lot of money. And, I read a couple articles about the center of town, you know, we took a pretty good beating in some periodicals from some of our neighboring folks about, you know, we're putting up something, but most of those buildings have been in a state of disrepair for 30, 40 years. It was only, by God's grace, they didn't blow over and kill somebody. So I just think, like the old fire department, it's basically been like that since I was a kid, aside from selling grapefruit out of it about 30 years ago. And the last time we had the engineer, when we had the town, or, what was his name?
Building official, Mr.
Yeah.
Barbell.
And he went in there, said it's full of mold and, you know, holes in the roof, so it may be historic, but there's a lot of buildings here, I think, that they're so far gone, it would take astronomical sums of money to get them up and running. So I just think if we could identify what is historic,
Okay.
and like you said, what makes a building historic, because, I mean, Green Hill now is approaching 30 years old. In 20 years, everything in Green Hill is going to be historic.
Okay, so why don't we do this then? As part of the homework assignment, I'll have all of you guys review the historic resources section in the comp plan. If you will, take some notes on things that you guys would like to see modified. And then also please come up with a list of what makes a place, landscape, or building, structure historic. And the reason I include places and landscapes is because in the comp plan, they do make mention of archaeological sites that are potentially historic. These are ones that some have structures on them, some do not. So we want to be sensitive to that as well. These are sites that maybe played a role in the Civil War or had some kind of artifact. So do
Exactly.
please keep that in mind.
What was the first part of that? You wanted us to determine what needs updating?
Yeah, just if there's paragraphs or sections in there.
Because
that
I would
feel
tell you,
need-
I've got the plan, and I've gone over every bit of it, and about 80% has to be updated.
Yes, specifically.
I mean, all the charts, the tables and stuff, everything has to be updated.
Correct.
Historic, this actually has the historic building inventory on page 46. But some of these I don't think are here any longer.
So what we will do on that is I'm going to work with the board, and I would like to come up with a complete list, whether it's here or not,
Sure.
and have it designated of if it was taken down, when it was taken down, and try to do a bit better of a photo documentation, things of that nature, a little bit more research, and that will be part of an appendix to our document. It'll also be a resource available on the website. But for now, if you just look at the language that goes with the current section and make notation of items that could be more clear or modified. And I'll ask them to do the exact same assignment.
Before we go too far, most of this is rooted in public law at the state and federal level. Would you be able to research first and ask, I don't think there's any county laws, but if you look into that first before because we can put opinions there, but it doesn't matter what our opinion is, it's state law. I mean, I just pull up
So a lot
Virginia
of,
law, and it talks about preservation of historic sites and architectural areas. So they have definitions that are already part of public law, and we don't want to go against that.
right, so we'll keep that, but a lot of what's in the comprehensive plan is not all circling back to Virginia state law. A lot of it's so local.
Right, but we don't want to contradict. I think that's where we can have a problem where we contradict.
So that wouldn't happen. So if you all had specific updates and things like that, our town attorney will review this document prior to approval.
Compare
So-
that to the law.
So what I'm saying is, like, let's not go and spend a lot of man hours into something when it's already laid out and we cannot contradict it anyway.
Well,
So there's state law, and so if we have that first before we go and do homework assignments, let's find out what the public law says, because we
Yes.
can't go against it.
I can provide what makes a place historic according to Virginia state law.
And is there anything lower echelon does the county, I couldn't find anything in the simple search, but is there a county historian, and there are offices and resources that we could tap into that we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Yes. But I can say that their standards are not necessarily, I think the town is gonna wanna make more strict local standards to preserve some of the structures that are important to the town, because they will not fall under county and state. And with that, an example is, if you have a historic structure, but you've already modified it and you've not kept it up to Virginia's standard of historic places, then it can no longer count for a regional or national historic structure. And so we have about 1 or 2 in town that have not done significant modifications that can be nationally registered. So if we follow those standards, then it'll be a lot, I won't say it'll be a lot more lenient, but we're going to want to create several more to protect that historic nature of those places.
I guess the way I look at it would be, we see what's already in public law because the town falls under state and national jurisdiction when it comes to those definitions. And do we want to be more restrictive, or are we okay with those definitions? Is, I think, would be the first step. That's how I would look at it. So
You
if we,
can add to, you can't take away from.
Yeah, we're
well, that's what I
already-
mean. So
Yeah.
can you be more restrictive? So where is
We
our
are.
baseline? What's the public law currently? And do we want to be more restrictive by adding to, or are we okay with the public law as is?
So we're already more restrictive.
Okay, so I think that's,
To start with, we're already more restrictive than state or county or.
and do you know specifically where? Because that'll help us out, because
Well,
honestly,
we
just,
can
We'll
send that.
send it.
But I
All
mean,
right.
it's going to be several laws. It's not just going to be 1 or 2.
No,
So
I
we'll send
agree with you.
everything.
and with that information, then I think that's our recommendation would be, are we looking to go straight to what the public law is, or are we okay with how we're more restrictive? And if it helps out, if you are very specific about where we are more restrictive, and is that what we are advocating?
It'll take some time for us to research and find, so,
And I think that's where getting the ARB, because that's their area of expertise.
'Cause that's the other thing, is ARB is restrictive and would like to maintain the local history in town. So going and saying, well, these are the state laws and this is, this is the public law, so we can just go here. I don't think that is probably going to be a non-starter for them, but we'll
Well, then
provide
let's have them bring what their suggestion is about that, and then we
Well,
can discuss
but
it.
If we're not gonna, if we gotta send the state law to you all before we even start reviewing and doing homework, then, you know what I'm saying? It might be advantageous to do a little bit of homework and see areas that need updating, that you all just think this could be updated, that could be 50 years as a historic home, maybe we need a little bit more than that, and then that way when we have the joint meeting with ARB, we can kinda get some of that done while Emily and I are reviewing the state law to ensure that if anything starts coming close to that state law, we can make sure we let you all know. So this way, everybody's working at the same time.
Well, we can also do what we did with the comp plan. We can look at the other small towns around here and find out what their historic values are and what they, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I want to be pragmatic about it. I don't mind taking something somebody else is doing if it makes sense for here, so just.
I guess that's my point, is that we're all going to have an opinion. So what it looks like to me is we would come back after having multiple opinions, and then really that work would be not fruitful, because I'd be like, oh, I guess I couldn't do what I was thinking because it goes against public law. So if we all have that basis and that information, then we can move forward. But if the ARB is really the experts, then I would say it was not a planning committee job. I mean, I think that's a goal for the town to know, but I don't know if necessarily believe it's planning committee. We do have the historic section in there. I don't know. I think there's other things that we could focus on besides rewriting the historic section, to be honest with you, because it's a lot of,
So this is for like the comprehensive plan, like Councilmember Shannon was discussing, that in the comprehensive plan, it dictates these are the specific properties that are historic, and any home over 50 years is historic. So if you're talking about development, if a historic property or historic structure is going to dictate how a person develops the property, they go one and the same. So you can't just say, oh, we're not going to worry about history because we're planning commission, so we worry about development. And then people who have to develop then have, like that does.
okay, so you're misunderstanding me. What I'm talking about is that, so we have people that have, if they have expertise in that area, then that's great, and we should use that expertise. But I'm saying for our time, and if we're all going to go back and spend hours on giving our opinion, that's not going to make a difference because, again, there's public law that prohibits certain things, then why are we going to keep putting our opinion? We're not above state law or federal law. So I'm saying, well, I think the little time that we have, because honestly, as volunteers, I mean, I don't have hours that I'm able to dedicate. And maybe it's time where I back out, because what I'm looking at is we wanted to give a structure of priorities and a kind of where we wanted to go with a comprehensive plan, but like rewriting a whole section and doing that is just something I don't think is going to add value, and it's going to drag this on for a really long time. This is my opinion on that one. So the historic section is really bounded very tightly because of public law, so I don't see we should be focusing our attention on that one. And if you're saying the ARB is the ones that are the experts, then maybe we should let them go through it and they can educate us on the process. And historic, and we don't have to have, I think, opinions will be not as fruitful with our time.
Chairman?
I do think, though, that a lot of what's in our historical section there is opinion, because a lot of it is not on the registry. And there are very strict guidelines, and I don't disagree necessarily with what Nick's saying, but there is a lot of gray area. Like, for example, those of us who have lived around here for 40, 50 years, there was a Gossam store here on the corner of Jefferson and Washington. When I was a kid back in the 60s, that building had been there for who knows how long. It no longer exists. And it's sat right here where this little grass area is. So there's a lot of buildings that have been here in the past that aren't here anymore, that were far older than some of these we're debating about. And it's like every project that comes up, we're always hitting, is it historic? I think it'd be worthwhile to get the law, get the ARB, and spend one night talking about it, because invariably every project that comes before us, it falls into one of those categories. Schools, overcrowded, doesn't fit, or it's going to hurt the history. I think it does. While we don't necessarily set the guidelines, we do have to obey them, and you know what I'm saying? There's just so much overlap. I mean, I can't think of a project in the past 6 years that I've served in this town that those four things haven't been either what the citizens spoke about. Every meeting, we spent hours talking about those four items.
And when we say it doesn't fit, is that physically fit, or does not fit, I think, the idea of the town? Like,
Fit the idea of the town.
okay.
Like this interchange down here doesn't fit because it hurts walkability.
Okay.
Every project comes up with the same, the faces change sometimes, but the same complaints always come back. Like I've heard now that the historic type hotel at the conference center doesn't fit. I'm saying, would you rather have 4 buildings falling down, boarded up? When we were debating to get rid of the little tax thing there, if you go back in the 40s and 50s, you can find pictures of that little tax building. But would you consider that historic? I personally wouldn't.
Good thing is, that's a done deal.
I know, but you know my
you're right.
point.
I'm kind of hearing the saying, just look, and this is why I said, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, the 1.5.3, the historic building inventory, basically says all buildings within the old and historic town of Haymarket, which are 50 years or older, are designated historic buildings. That makes no sense. So that's why we need to clearly identify. And now I don't disagree with not what Nick's saying too. We got an ARB here that's very capable, very smart people, and they're focused on the historic value of this town and everything. So I would just, encourage them. I got no problems doing some research. I'm gonna do my own research on other towns, and especially Purcellville, because they got a lot of historic homes right there on Business 7. So I'll do some checking too, but I think that particular section here, 1.5.3, I think the ARB ought to really take a look at that too, because they're smart on that and what they consider historic. So
All right, I think we beat this horse to death.
Yep.
So let's move on.
Okay. What were some of the other priorities that you guys came up with in your last month's homework assignment? I know we had a couple more. We have 3 listed.
So I wasn't here last, so I know I put in that Word document, so I don't know if that was
That's
looked
fine.
at and, or if people didn't want to.
Put it in the agenda.
Oh, okay.
It was presented.
One thing we can discuss, Commissioner Polari actually talking about with school overcrowding as well as density, so that, you know, if we reach that 3,500 threshold, then we have to deal with the roads and stuff like that. That also goes with the school overcrowding. So if you all wanted to look at density, or, because that would solve both, you know, talking about worrying about the infrastructure as well as, I guess, school overcrowding for our residents would also be kind of an infrastructure thing as well, if y'all are interested in discussing that or looking at that.
Yeah, I was also kind of thinking about like a business feasibility, which could, I think, all tie in together. Like, is there enough residential, or is it too much residential, and that goes with density for
What's
population?
What's the balance, residents per business or things like
Right.
that? Yeah, I have seen some places do that it can be beneficial to help you all come up with decisions. So if somebody comes in and wants to build a certain number of townhouses, and you kind of, okay, well, where our balance is now, we need 3, you know, commercial buildings or areas for business for every X number of townhouses or single-family homes. That way, kind of would be able to help you all with the site plan phase. So that is something that
Well,
would help.
I mean, the wild card here is knowing what's going to be within a mile radius around us, because, you know, these big project they have going up here on 15, as of right now, I don't think there's any commercial retail going in up there. So a lot of people are coming from out of the 1 mile proper of Haymarket to shop here, eat here. So it's a little tricky in that regard. If we knew better what was coming with the county in the 1 mile, it would give us a little bit idea.
So in those feasibility studies, normally you can, like with Christopher Consulting, who's also our town engineer, is probably one of the people we'd reach out to, but sometimes you can do like a half mile or a mile kind of buffer zone, because you just have, you know, so many people from Piedmont, or, you know, the Somerset, or, you know, some of these other developments around here that come in. Sometimes those buffer areas would be included in like a business feasibility study, just to, you know, like the rest of Green Hill Crossing, you know, that would be included in that like buffer area, just because they most likely frequent Haymarket on a regular basis. So that's, those type things would be included in a lot of the
Well,
feasibility.
in some respects, we're being swallowed up by Prince William County all around us.
Well, we're going to be the 234, Business 234, I-66 interchange. That's what we're going to be. When you look at the hotels they're building on the other side over there, and I guess if Home Depot's still coming or whatever, with, you know, over 1,000 homes being built out here and everything. I mean, the good thing is we're almost built out. We don't have but a couple parcels left where we could build out. That's a good thing. Because I would tell you exactly, we don't want to get to 3,500 people, because then we have to have our own public works.
Then we're gonna have a lot of issues,
That's
property taxes
absolutely.
gonna go through the roof.
Absolutely. So, and I don't think even with, you know, we're looking, if, you know, depending down here, it was 79 townhomes, 36 or 38 up here or whatever. There's not but a couple of parcels left here behind Eva Carroll. The one right here on Jefferson, is that still a go?
They recently just put up a for sale sign,
So that project's not going?
I'll have
Oh,
to
it's a
get back to
definite
you on
maybe?
it.
You're talking
Okay.
the one right back here, the
Yeah.
lady that came,
Yeah.
okay.
So, I mean, that's why I will just tell you, that's why I was happy that they were
It's a good project.
redoing the house right around the corner, because I was afraid somebody was going to buy up that property and want to put 3 or 4 more homes in there like they did across the street. I'm not faulting the builder for doing that. The beautiful homes and everything, you've done a good job. But, you know, I just don't want us to approach that 3,500 mark.
Yeah, I think that we always get approached with the SUPs. I think that's the common theme, at least I've observed
this year and a half was the SUPs for mostly residential. Let's add the residential and the high-density townhomes. So I think with a business, feasibility study, it helps us understand, should we be saying yes to that or no? I think we've kind of been like, yeah, it works and it's within the rules, but I don't think we have much more to inform us on a larger scale as a holistic view, if that's a good idea or not. And so if we had zoned it commercial, should we keep 100% of it commercial because we zoned it that way, and is that the right? Or maybe we should be breaking up a little bit and allowing half of it to go residential. But that's just, we want more than just our opinion on that. I think a business feasibility study would help us, and the 1 mile buffer will give us a better picture on how we can build out and tie in, because we're not just a little island, right? And we were trying to tie into the community. Connectivity, yeah.
But, so for priority, would you all want to put density and then just have like another section that just says like business residential balance, and that's where the like business feasibility would come in, because it all kind of plays together.
I think that's wise. I think if our priorities simply line up with our concerns, sometimes you can come up with so many priorities, you water them down. I think less is more, as opposed to come up, I mean, right now, traffic correlates,
To the walkability and
Correct.
connection, everything.
correct.
We can all kind of play on each other right now with the traffic, connectivity, density, all that works together.
Right, and even like the overcrowding of schools, I mean, we don't have our own school. Our residents go to Prince William County Public Schools. So
Right.
we really don't have any right to say to the county what they approve and what schools, because while we're Prince William County residents, we don't have any jurisdiction over them. So, and what little bit we're building, if this project down here on Devlin goes through, that they're doing the public hearing on, I think it's like 500 homes off Devlin Road. That would,
We're small potatoes here. Again, we're looking at
That's my
38 and
point.
79 compared to, probably a couple thousand in the surrounding neighborhoods here, homes. So we're small potatoes in that. We add to it, though. So
Absolutely.
I don't take that lightly when
no, we had
the
two,
lady
for
from the
sure.
school board or from the schools come. I understand their concerns. I truly do. But I'll state again, as I did before, the school board should not hold us hostage on our town to be able to grow out as we see fit.
And the school board shouldn't look to us to fix it. It should be
Yeah.
the school board's job to fix
Yeah.
it, not the cart before the horse.
I think it goes along with the density conversation. Like, should we be building townhomes or single-family homes? Less dense, higher property value, but less students, therefore feeding into the school because of lower density.
But then
But that
you
informs
also
us.
have home affordability.
Well, that's what I mean. So
Right.
if we, but that's part of the whole calculus, what we're comfortable with. So the density, it adds to the schools, traffic. But so if we go to single-family homes, obviously, the houses that I just bought, in Blight, single-family homes, those seem to have been able to be built in within price range for somebody to live in town. So are those the right size, and are those the ones that can sell and not sit in the market because they're way overpriced, right? So I just feel like we always get approached with usually max density of townhomes, right? Because, if I was a builder, that's what I'd want to do to make money. But it's our job to look at the counteract and say, what are the second, third order effects of that, and how's that going to impact traffic, schools? And should we say, well, let's do less, So again, it's a density conversation. Would it be helpful to have an outside agency or business to look at that?
And last thing I'll say on that, really in the actual town limits, we have very few townhomes. Because the vast majority of Green Hill Crossing fall
Is
in
in family.
Gainesville.
Yeah.
They're not even in our town.
Right.
They're really besides Long Street Commons and that row at the end of Blight. But all that to say, I think that would be wise.
Are there any other priorities you guys want to discuss, or leave these four?
I kind of agree with the chairman. I think less is better.
Yeah, I think my other ones kind of tie in there. like the other one I had for, well, probably falls within connectivity, like just alternative modes of transportation.
Okay. So we will start working on this and some other updates. I will request from the ARB that they also do the same homework assignment, and then we can look at a work session date so that they can help educate us and we can have a whole discussion regarding the historic resources chapter. Is there anything else on the comp plan that you guys would like to discuss?
Not really, just a comment. We're going to get into our homework next?
I think what I'll do, since we're planning to do a joint work session with the ARB, I think I'd like to leave it with the homework assignment about the historic resources chapter.
Okay. Because I just want to make one comment then. I did the research on those others, so I appreciate whoever it was that sent them, for us to go there. I'm looking at Middleburg, which is larger than us. Theirs is 39 pages, total, 39 pages. Ours is 100 plus appendices. You know, if we can, I don't know that, just reading through a lot of this, I just don't know a lot of this is really needed. But that's just my opinion. I think if we get a document too big, I think it's going to get lost. People are going to get lost. Just my comment. Because I like the Percival, their goals, their visions and stuff. I really learned a lot just by reading theirs. Everything, got some ideas of ours.
It's funny, like you read my note, I put overall thought, my overall thought after going through this is we want enough detail for the comp plan to be meaningful, but not so detailed it constantly has to be amended and no one knows what's in it. I had the same thought, it can just get overwhelming. And typically what happens in governments, they think verbosity equals productivity, and
That's not true.
it's not true.
Okay.
So I had the same thought.
And I also saw the same structure, and I think there's an opportunity, there's probably a basic structure to follow. This is how we make a comprehensive plan, and we could flip that. And I'd say no more, I'm thinking like a 20-page front side, but you front load it with what are we, what are our goals, or our projection of, I wrote it down. So like the goals, and then like our maps up front, and like our plans, and how we want to build that, all that up front. And then the appendices in the back are like the history and a lot of the other things that on these current versions, it's like you have to wade through a lot of that first. And then you get to where is where's the meat of it? Like, what are we actually planning for? So put that up front so people can, it's like an abstract, like let's get to the beginning part. What are you planning? Where are we at? What are we planning? And then we can do things on top of that. But ultimately, if we get to probably over 50 pages, that's too long, including all the extra stuff on the side. But the real updates are less than 20 pages because that's about the attention span we can get, including graphics and maps and things like that. And more maps and graphics we can have is going to, I think, play better with, just the conditioning, because most people are going to be looking at probably on this, on a phone. And so just something to consider as we're also what people are going to view it on, when we talk about graphics, how detailed they are. And more simple is better.
And when we come up with our final draft, then are we not going to have a public hearing or so, one or two? Or are we going
Probably
to put
would,
it
yeah.
on the internet and send something out to our citizens and let them, that was the thing on one of them, I think it was in Middleburg, where citizens were given a date to respond with recommendations and stuff. I think that's important, but I need to, we need to make that date realistic, but we need to cut it off at that date. No more comments after that, because otherwise it's going to keep coming time after time. We give a drop dead date, anything after that, we just don't take.
Yeah, they all mentioned citizen surveys played
Yeah.
a large part. That was a common, I was looking for common themes.
Yeah.
And that was a big common theme. Plus, there's 5 of us up here, and there's 7 or 8 of us There's a lot more folks out there that might come up with something better.
They
than
got some
we
good
do.
ideas out there. That's, you know,
Yeah, we don't have a corner on the market of ideas.
okay.
Okay, so with that, I'm gonna toss out a couple dates here for joint work session. Just tell me which ones are an absolute no, because again, I will have to talk to the ARB about it. I have March 9th, it's the second Monday.
I'm okay with that.
So I'm going to be a jerk. The only week I'm available in March is the 23rd through 27th, because I've got work trips all the
So-
time, but
One of the other dates was March 25th. Well, hold on, for March 9th, aside from Nick, is that an okay date for the other three?
Works for me.
It works for me. Okay, so I'll put that down. March 25th, does that work? That is the fourth Wednesday.
That doesn't work for me.
it'd just be tough because I'm going to be all the way at Andrews Air Force Base, and by the time I drive all the way back, it'd probably be midnight by that point.
Hey, Nick, on
Sarcastic,
the
but
ninth,
almost still true.
you're traveling on the 9th?
I am.
Can
For the
you,
25th.
But the 25th, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to be all the way to Andrews and drive back
So
and all the
you're-
traffic.
okay.
So I don't know if I'll be able to get here by 6, definitely not by 6, but
I'm
Is
just
the
wondering on the 9th if you'll be able to pull up on the internet to see what's going on and everything, if,
I might be flying. I don't know. I haven't done the flights
Oh,
yet.
okay,
I have to fly
okay.
to Ohio.
because I just value your input, and I know,
Yeah, I could do it. I mean, I could just email again. If you guys are all right with that, you just read it out. I mean,
We entered the last, I mean,
March is a hard one for me just because I'm doing all the pre-move.
just your email
Tricks.
before really helped out, so I just like your input, you know, your insight and everything, I think it's important to have. So if you're not flying on the 9th, if you can tune in and just see what we're saying and everything, make any comments or whatever.
Yeah, have you guys ever done a call-in before?
We are not.
I'm not allowed to do that?
No.
It's against the law. Okay. I figured, yeah, that makes, I could be held
Fairfax
hostage.
County Board of
So-
Supervisors can
Yeah.
tell you about that.
So the other, why don't we just come up then with 2 or 3 dates? So the 9th is possible, Nick wouldn't be able to make it and can email. The 16th is our regular work session anyway at 6 PM, and I assume that works for everybody, so I will pitch that to the board. And then a third date, would the 18th work for the planning commission? That is the ARB, it's regular meeting night, and we could do a 6 PM with them before their 7.
Do it both nights?
Do
you
one
know,
or the other.
or-
I just
yeah.
want to take them about
I'm
3
fine
options.
with whatever works. Whatever
Okay.
works.
Wednesdays are out for me
They're
all
out
the
for you.
time.
Okay. So, how about the 10th? That is a Tuesday. I can pitch the 9th, the 16th. Would the 10th be an option?
An option for me.
It is.
10th would work.
Yeah, I'll set the email, so we'll be out.
Okay.
You're
Yeah,
on
we'll do
all
the
of
same
it.
thing we did
Yeah.
last time.
One
The email,
last.
Yeah.
and provide it in the agenda so everybody will have it.
Okay.
Okay, one last option, just for kicks and giggles. The 23rd, would you be able to make it at that point?
The 23rd, I should be, yes,
Okay.
here.
So if they would like to wait and have a little bit more time to do their part, would
I'm
the
good.
23rd
23rd's
work?
good for me.
23rd works for me. I mean, I would like him here. if
Okay, so
possible.
I will ask for that date first,
23rd, okay.
because that looks like all 4 of you are nodding yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about 6 o'clock?
Yes, and
Is
then
that with the ARB?
that would be, and then backup dates, I will ask for the 9th, 10th, or 16th.
Okay.
Are we moving the whole planning commission, so nothing on the 16th, everything on the
No,
23rd?
We'll still hold the 16th meeting, unless we don't have anything for the agenda, in which I will then contact the chairman.
Okay, because I'm gone then too.
But we will plan to still hold the 16th, yes.
Pretty much
And
gone the
we
whole
will still
time.
plan, if we don't have our work session on the 16th, we'll just count the 23rd or whatever date it's chosen as our comp plan work session. for March, unless you would like to have 2 meetings, Chairman.
I would rather just stick to one work session
Okay.
and one,
So after I hear back from the ARB tomorrow night, I will send you guys an email Thursday or Friday and let you know what meeting date was chosen. But it will
Okay.
be at 6 p.m.
Works.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. I'll send you your assignment as well via email. That's all I have.
all right. I have a motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.